Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of Move for a Movement. I'm here today with Angie Agudo, the program chair of Groovy Meat, Inc., which is a dance studio that offers free classes to girls in Harlem as a safe and enduring space for girls to express themselves and discover their capabilities in a stable environment. Angie has extensive experience teaching dance to underserved communities nationally and internationally, and has a background in sociology and psychology. So yes, thank you so much for being with us today. Welcome.
Thank you. This is great.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Exciting.
First, I love Group With Me's statement, dance to a positive future. Can you speak to that a bit? What that really means and why it matters in terms of what Group With Me does every day and in the long term?
Yeah, so, right. So we're space that's for girls, and we're the only space that offers extracurricular activity for girls in the community, like solely girls by girls. And the programs that are around the area are more so academic programs or co-ed programs. And they're also expensive. And in offering a safe space for just those girls, we eliminate a lot of issues such as teenage pregnancy, lack of resources, and often what happens is our girls are the backbone of the household. A lot of our families are single home families. And so as moms are working all the time, our girls then tend to start doing the household chores and taking care of their younger siblings. And so in creating a space that invites girls to have another after school program, sort of say, that is free of cost, and we're open to having their family exist in our space as well, with like even if they have younger brothers or something, they can stay in the studio in our waiting area while so that's how we best support our girls, so they're able to still be children, they're able to be expressive and have their sort of therapeutic time, and we can best support their moms who are working a lot. We can best support not just our children. We make big change by supporting our families. In addition to that, we have other resources that Groove With Me. We just, dance is our outlet, dance is our expression, but we do offer a lot more. We have leadership committees with our teenagers where they can do a lot of personal and professional development. Like they have access to college help, and where most of the public schools they attend don't have that much, or there's not enough. There's one guidance counselor for too many kids. And so we have that. We also have partnerships with other organizations that can come in and teach some other form of dance, or come in and share the different possible careers in dance. And so we do so by providing exposure to different lifestyles in dance or outside of dance. And we get tickets to go to so many other shows. And that's another form of exposure and sharing that there's life beyond East Harlem or Spanish Harlem, and life beyond the South Bronx. And they wouldn't have known otherwise. So there's so much that we do. So in supporting our girls social emotionally, we also support them with their education. We have tutoring that is available. We have access. We also have a social work in girls and even families, and we can outsource them to other organizations. So it's cultural, it's socioeconomic, it's educational, it's art, it's all its sort of expressions. And that's what we mean by dancing to a positive future, because that's where we start with our model with dance and it being accessible, and we do more beyond that. And just by us existing as a safe space is important. We have girls who have been like our first students and they still return. We have a lot of returning dance teachers who have been students in the organization. So yeah, so that's us. And that's what we mean by dancing. And also when we have, sorry, what?
I just said that's amazing. It's all amazing.
So when we have performance opportunities, we are able to take our girls to different parts of the city to perform. And that's not something they'd be able to do otherwise. So that's how we instill their confidence. We put them out there. We show them how to, like, we often talk about, like, in schools, they don't really teach public speaking anymore, or the curriculum has changed so that children don't have to collaborate in front of a classroom and do a project and sort of like that. So that's how we sort of collaborate with schools and with their education, that we show them that this is a form of public speaking. This is a performative piece that you can put yourself out there and get all the jitters out and really teach you to being individuals who are confident in themselves and their capabilities. So yeah.
Yeah, that's something that dance offers, right? Even if you never go on to be a professional dancer, if you dance as a kid, or even if you're an adult, right? That leadership and the ability to get up on a stage and present yourself, and put on a character or not, or you just move the yeah, amazing. Just to be clear, so you serve from young elementary up through high school. Do I understand that correctly? Or?
We start at age 4 and we end at age 18.
Right. So yeah, it's sort of that
right
whole spectrum before typically college.
Yeah.
Amazing. I was also, what resonated with me also when you were speaking, it seems like such a support system for not only these girls, but their entire families. Like, to have that there, those resources where, you know, if the girl needs to, if she's looking after the younger siblings that day, she can take them to the waiting room and those children are looked after, you know, while she can still do something for herself. And it can be such a load off to have free tutoring and college help, you know, in these sort of lower socioeconomic families in Spanish Harlem, to have that available when, you know, the money for that just isn't there, right? But to help her to step up to that next level, that's there, and that's amazing. I'm just wowed and love it all. Can you speak a little bit to your responsibilities as a program chair? What do you do in your role?
Right. So, are you referring to program chair as program director? Is that interchangeably? Is that what that means?
The website says your role is program chair, so my sincere apologies if I have that wrong. But so what is your?
I don't know why, but yeah. So as program director, I am in charge of enrollment. Enrollments and as far as like children registration and everything that has to do with children. And so I'm more of the day-to-day operation. So, and that includes also I'm in charge of teachers and hiring and training our teachers. And I also am in charge of the social emotional issues that may arise with the children, and as far as disciplinary needs, which we rarely have any of that. So with that being said, so we have a volunteer model with our teachers, and we scout them out through like multiple platforms of like Indeed, Idealist, or those websites that we hire, where we can hire volunteers and other dance schools or dance companies. And so I interview them, tell them what our model is, and making sure that they resonate with our mission, because our culture at Groovy Meat is of utmost importance to all of us. And our mission is it should be driven through from every person that walks through Groove with Me. Especially even though our teachers are volunteers and they may only offer maybe an hour or two a week, they still embody us and they represent Groove with Me as a whole. So I really pretty much ensure that they're with us and they really agree with what we do at Groove with Me. And that also goes with families, you know. We often families or people forget that dance is a discipline, and we want to make sure that everyone's on the same page of what we offer at Groove with Me. So when we do registration, the children are supposed to be present. We interview the children too, what their likes and dislikes are. And part of our interview, it's actually one of the questions we ask the child if they want to be there. And if the child says no, then we ask them why, and we'll have a conversation on that, because we create very positive relationships with dance, and not just with dance, but with Groove with Me. We want to make sure that everyone who walks through that door wants to be there. And it's interesting because I've worked with other organizations and we've never accommodated so many people at the same time. So we really try and strive our best to ensure that everyone's happy at Groove with Me, that if you're coming to Groove with Me, this is the best time of your week. Teacher, parent, and dancer all together. So yes, I kind of oversee all of that, and you know, it's a team of 4. The part-time site supervisor or studio manager, and we really try our best to make sure that we're doing all that we can, the best that we can, in supporting our families need be where it need be. So yeah, overall I do that. In addition to that, I'm in charge of the team leadership committee, which is where our teams get professional and personal development. I create the curriculum for them, and these are teams to apply to be a part of this, and they have a say on what happens at Groove with Me. Usually they'll make like a gift, so they'll paint a studio, or they'll do a fundraiser or something like that, and they participate in other classes as well. And I also am in charge of our partnering organizations. So like I've mentioned, like other organizations that provide insight on careers in dance, or other organizations that provide scholarships for our girls to enhance their dance abilities. So stuff like that. And also the social emotional needs. I'm the outsourced person for that. So if there's a family that confides in us and they have these sort of needs, I point them in the right direction. But most of it, it's mostly, sometimes it's just really like, I'm like the fun aunt. So that's pretty much what it turns out to be. And it's great because you get children that really want to be around. And I've worked in education, and it's a different vibe. You know, when children feel like they have to do something versus when they want to do it, you have kids at the best time. So it's pretty much me.
Yeah, it seems to me like a model of comprehensive consent. Like you were saying, everyone who's there wants to be there, and you want it to be the best part of their week. And I bet it really is for a lot of the girls who come. It's the best part of their week. And that sort of leads into another question I wanted to ask you about your background in sociology and psychology, and how that informs your work, how you fit that into what you do.
Right. So I've always loved learning of different cultures and their experience and the social differences. And so I remember when I was in college, my goal was to sort of travel and write on different cultures and their experiences and what their practices are. But my background also is in psychology, so I wanted to touch more on how mental health differs in different countries and different communities. And so I am from Spanish Harlem, and I also am a product of Groove with Me as well. So it's kind of like a full circle. So my goal was really just to learn as such. And so I have traveled a lot and just studied different cultures. And every time I've traveled, I've done some sort of give back, and going to an orphanage or going to a space where children are. And a lot of it had to do with, like, we all it was with groups, and so you could focus on what you wanted to focus on, but mine was always like arts or music and dance. And I just knew I had a gift with being with children, and being with children who have had inconsistencies in their life. And so I thought it was through education, and so I took that route. And so I really learned that I am not that person, that I'm way too free, open-minded and free-spirited to be sort of the stickler. And it was just not a fun fit for me. So, and I realized that every time I did a role where I was in authority and had to be the disciplinarian, I often had fun when I spent time with the children who sort of acted out in a sense, but and when we did collaborative pieces of like more therapeutic things. And so when I essentially went back to grad school for psychology and in clinical psych, and then I also thought that that was my route, and so that I would sit in a space and give therapy, and that is not it. And it's, you know, it was like I kept trying these other routes, but my background really has brought me to a place of that art has resonated with me completely. I love music, I love dance, and I love painting. I love all of that. And so when you give children resources rather than discipline and rules and structure, they strive, or they blossom more, and they're able to be their true authentic selves without acting out, without being disruptive. So, you know, full circle, I had moved back from New Orleans. I was living in New Orleans at the time, moved back, and learned that Groovy Meat was hiring a program director. And all of my trial and error has sort of brought me back to Groovy Meat and me being a great fit for the position. The ideal candidate would be someone who can and has the ability to enforce rules and really create the structure necessary, but is someone that is very understanding to the social economic needs of a group and how we can best support, and knows the cultural differences and the impact that we have as a space in the area. So rather than being the space that's, most of our kids go to charter schools, and charter schools have a very like rigid curriculum. So rather than being another extension of that, how can we best how can we best support those students, but providing them the space to be themselves. So if they want to jump for an hour, they can jump for an hour. If at that moment that their need is not to dance and their need is to really just be alone or just not. We also have coloring available. So in the event that there's a child that dance is not there for them that day, maybe coloring is, and maybe having a conversation is. And at Groovy Meat, it's just such a space of understanding and a non-judgmental space that I think it doesn't exist, and not like that. But anyway, to bring it back to my background and stuff, it was just the perfect fit for me to have someone of my background and understanding the cultural differences and the acceptance of all types of kids. Because, you know, even though I grew up in the space and I grew up in Spanish Harlem, and I definitely can relate with a lot of our kids, we often have different perceptions of things, and how you think you're relatable just because you've experienced similar stuff, but you're really not that relatable. So in my travels and what I've learned through different cultures has really made me more effective. It's made me a better program director. So yeah, that's
That I feel like it fits into that comprehensive consent model of like the child is telling you what they need. You can listen, right? And rather than try to fit a square peg in a round hole, what do they need? Providing that, having coloring available. If they need to jump, if that's something had to move their bodies, that's, you know, lead them in that in a safe way. And it's interesting also offering that alternative to a structured charter school day, but something that's still enriching in like a sneaky way. Like they might think they're having fun, but it's still enrichment. I think is interesting. Yeah, I love
Right,
it.
yeah.
And you keep giving me such great
That definitely
segues.
does happen.
But go ahead. I think there's a delay.
No, what's interesting,
So,
I just got interviewed. I'm sorry, what?
I was saying there's like some kind of delay,
Oh,
Zoom. But anyways, go ahead.
there is. I think it might be me. Give me 1 second. Okay, we're back.
I see a little dancer. See a little dancer and not your
Okay.
face.
Oh no.
Now you are. Yay. There you go. Now
Okay,
I see you.
sorry.
No worries.
Um, sorry, what were we talking about?
Informed consent, offering that space that's enriching but is fun, having all those different offerings
Oh,
available
right.
given what
So
they need.
no, yeah, they don't. No one realizes how much growth happens in the dance space, and so you're right. It's kind of sneaky, but it does a lot. It plays a huge role. Um, so I think that's all I was gonna say. Yeah, that's it.
You keep giving me such great segues because you were starting to talk a little bit about traveling abroad. And I was reading Thailand, I think you traveled to for
Hmm.
offering in communities there. Yeah, I'm always really interested to hear about dancers who go on sort of social action or even just performing tours and the perspective they gain through working abroad.
Right.
Could you speak to that? Did you bring back a certain perspective, like coming back to the US, did it kind of change how you saw the world and the work?
Right. Yeah, you're right. A lot of Western belief is that the way we do things is the right way. And
Yeah.
so um, my initial reaction was try not to be like ethnocentric, like really try to keep the way you do things to yourself. But um, I would say going there, I had the perspective of learning as much as I could from the space. Um, and what it had to offer me. So when we were in Thailand, um, it was part Thailand, and then we went to Cambodia. And I definitely resonated with Cambodia. I love Cambodia more because Thailand was very busy, and like I felt like I was in New York City. I was like, dang, this is too much for me. Like there's a lot going on. And but being in Cambodia, you know, you build connections with people, and um it was beautiful. Sorry, I'm like having a reminiscent moment. So they had their sort of like their genocide. It was like in the 80s, and they had a huge regime, and it was very difficult time where even our host would tell us about he was a product of that. He was born in the 80s and had to escape, and his parents were murdered and all these things. And it's disgusting. We went to the ruins and we got to see all of the stuff that has happened, and but no one really talks about, you know, like no, I would have never known had I not gone. And so they talk about what their needs are, and everyone had like this sort of relaxed perspective. They were just like, you know, it's a very Buddhist country too, so like everyone's just like this shall pass, or like super laid back. And I'm like, why is no one angry, and why are you guys not making much of a difference, or like why? And now I really had to like ground myself and really say like that's just my perspective on it all. They, you know, like their beliefs is what makes them work. So in traveling abroad, really just it taught me that there's so many ways of life. It's so different for everyone. And even mental health, like when you're part of a collectivist society, mental health is at a lower rate. It's completely different, where families aren't sending their children or adults to spaces that specialize in it. They're taking care of those people. They're keeping them involved in the community. They're integrating them as much as possible. They're not isolated. And so that was probably one of the biggest takes from it, where they were like, there's like the village crazy lady, and they're like, but we still love her. We talk to her and we mess around with her. And that's a big difference because in Harlem, on 125th Street. Like you can even, if you walk through there are so many methadone clinics, and most people who are addicted to any kind of substance have some mental health issues underlying all of that. Or it creates more mental health issues. And so I even think of that perspective and how isolating we are, because if you're from New York City, you know, you're not going to talk to the crazy person on the train. You just don't know eye contact, like nothing like that, right? Whereas like in Cambodia, it was completely different. It was a whole different perspective. People were engaging. I'm like, don't talk to this person, ain't gonna mess with you, you know what I mean? And so but you look at that and just simple acts of like being a human and being interactive with everyone despite their needs, despite their difference, it creates a bigger impact. It's more potent, it's powerful, and in their healing process. Though a lot has to do with their beliefs and their philosophies and religion, it's just completely different to how the US exists. So I'm taking this whole like big loop, but I think I often refer to that when I have children around me where like I have to check my own biases and understand what are my triggering points, because I've been around children and they're doing attention behavior seeking and stuff, and I have to check myself and say, hey, how can I best integrate this child into this, and how can I accept this child so that they're not acting out more and that they can feel included. And so I often refer back to it, and I try my best to have more of a Buddhist philosophy, of a more of an accepting philosophy, and really not to, we're such an egocentric society where we're constantly thinking of ourselves and what bothers us, and we're so important and self-centered, and the East does not believe that. Like there's not, all these other countries are very collectivist, and they're like, how do we feel as a group rather than how do we feel individually? So, and that's in reflection with dance. And when I am in charge of TLC, I say we're a group, you know, we're a team of women, building women, and how can we best support one another? How can we grow as a group? And that's in addition to our teachers. And building community is very important in a country that's constantly dividing us, that's constantly separating us. And then trying to continue that, because we have a large Latino population and they're by community as well. So how can we integrate those that are undocumented with those who are? How can we get our English speaking moms to integrate with our Spanish speaking moms? How can we just combine all of them and help each other, empower each other? So yes, I'm always thinking about that and integrating that into Groove With Me. And whenever I am triggered, whenever I'm bothered and have my own biases, really checking myself and reflecting back on my studies and reflecting back on my travels on how I can really get myself back in line to being a better supportive person.
I will affirm, I see that collectivist and community quality in everything Groove With Me does, which it makes all the sense in the world to me. Like you were saying, collectivist countries have lower rates of mental health illness. Like, makes all the sense in the world to me.
Yeah.
But anyways, I'm curious how Groove With Me has accommodated COVID or adapted to COVID. Have you done virtual classes? Have you done anything in parks, or how is that working?
Right. So we immediately went virtual, and that was very difficult. So it was really a tough time. So we created a portal online for all of our volunteer dance teachers to schedule a Zoom call, to even maybe pre-record stuff and provide resources to our families. So we have an online portal that families can access. It's password protected, so they can see our dance teachers, they can know everything that's going on. And it included a whole bunch of like activities to do at home, like level of reading your children should be on, and like all of these like informational stuff, and other dance organizations that are providing free classes, and all of that information is on there. But in doing virtual, we had really poor attendance, and we recently learned, you know, we had to survey our parents, and we were so curious, like, what's going on? Like, we're offering all these things and no one's using them. And we just learned that access to internet was an issue. Access to technology was another issue. where there's too many children in the household and one computer. And, you know, like the last thing they're going to do is use a computer for dance. But most importantly, you know, our families are low income. And so New York City is extremely expensive. And if you're undocumented, you were hit first with all income. If you're undocumented, you didn't get a stimulus check. You didn't have any other support. So when you think about that, there's so many people now in the household that had never been in a household before. And these are like 5 people per 1-bedroom apartment. So there's just literally lack of space for children to just have dance. And just overall, we don't have much accountability. Our dance classes are free. We are very much so extracurricular. So we had to shift a lot. A lot of what I did was more so calling families and checking in, just having conversation on what we can best do. And we partnered up with another organization that specifically works with undocumented peoples and supporting them. We did our own care package drive, and we had families come in, pick up a care package. And these were needs like medication and like children's Tylenol or cleaning supplies that you wouldn't be able to get. Like, you know, the people who work there, we have cars, like we live differently, and we have access to driving to a store that has an abundance. Like we have access to driving to BJ's or Costco and buying in bulk. Our families don't. And so if last minute your child needs children's Tylenol, you're going downstairs to the bodega, and if they don't have it, then what do you do? So things like that. We tried to support our families with the things that they wouldn't necessarily get from a food bank, but that they would definitely need last minute. So we tried our best to really just support as in different ways, you know, whether they needed mental health support. And just by calling in families, like we split up the amount of families. We reached out to every family that was registered that this past year. Asked them how they were doing and how they were reacting to everything, and if they were interested in coming back to Groove with me and what that would look like. And we just recently sent out another survey because we have come up with a plan for the fall. So we on average registered 250 to 275 girls for the year. And so we're cutting that enrollment in half. And the ways that we're just inviting ages 7 to 12 to enroll. 7 to 12 is our biggest number of girls. So we're inviting them, and we've created a whole like procedures and policies and how we're going to be safe, and only inviting 16 girls in the studio at once, and even all staff won't even be in the space. So parents won't even be allowed upstairs. Like we just know that families do need a break. And even we're in conversation about inviting at least one class a week for moms, like moms who just need a break and need some physical activity. Everyone needs to get out the house, you know? And we're also hiring, which we've never done before, is a licensed therapist to be on staff part-time to best support those families. We know that it's not just COVID, it's all the social injustices that have been happening with our families being largely undocumented, and we have a large Black population. The effects of racism are at an all-time high, and our children are experiencing that as well, which is why we're trying our best to best support our children and how we can best manage and cope during these times where you're very much so isolated, and all that you're seeing on social media is extreme injustices that are happening to people that look just like you. So yeah, that's really, we've changed. So though we have already been the organization or those people who've best supported our community and like really listening to their needs, now we're just more so, we use dance, but dance is not our focus. Our focus is ensuring that every girl, so even this summer, like every girl passes their grades. Like we had children who had summer school, because let's be honest, everyone has different learning styles. Children are not going to be able to learn over the computer. So what we did was we try to provide tutoring for those families. We have now a laptop borrowing system. One of our donors donated a whole bunch of laptops to us so that we're able to give that to our families so that they do have access. I mean, we can't ensure that they have internet, but what we can ensure is that they can sign up for once a week time, like an hour slot to be at Groovy Meat so that they can get all their needs done. So just being a point of resource to our families to the best of our abilities is really how we've shifted. What else? I was gonna say one more thing. I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask sort of what's next. Where do you see things going? It's COVID, so that's such an uncertain question.
Yeah. Yeah. We
Yeah, you as far ahead in the future as we can know, I guess right now. You touched on that.
yeah. Well, we hope to
And
start soon. Groovy Meat is growing. We prior to COVID, we plans to double up by 2021, which we still are. We already have the space if things are changing. But as of yet, we're just going to, like, if we make a difference in 20 girls' lives, even though it's different than the 250, we still made a difference. And we're doing as much as we can until we can't. And we're not sure. What is, like, tomorrow, Governor Cuomo is just like, nope, sorry, we're going to close everything again. Then we'll close everything again. But we really need to be that place of hope for a lot of families and even for ourselves. You know, a lot of places have been closing, and a lot of small businesses in the community can't afford it anymore. Like, there's constant change in our community, and even schools around us have changed. They're downsizing. Like, so we're trying our best to not be an added factor to that. So we hope to start by the end of September or beginning October. We have a good amount of teachers who have been interested, and new teachers that are willing to come in, support. And whether that's an hour a week, it's great for everybody. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be impactful, as long as we follow our safety protocols and we ensure that everyone, including children and staff, are not affected or have not been affected, and they come in, you know, great, like we're disinfecting every child, then we see that we will be very, like, effective for the fall. And also, we have, our classes are more spread out, where typically they've been after school classes. Now we can offer classes in the middle of the day where we couldn't have before. So with that being said, we're trying to have classes starting at 12 p.m. and then having 30-minute like intermissions almost, so that we can disinfect and, like, get the air out in the studio. So we're all playing different roles just to make sure that our children have a space and our families have some sort of break. But I think that's our thing for the future, and hopefully we're, fingers crossed, like, everything works out and then we can, like, operate at full capacity. But that's pretty much how it's going to change until the semester, because we're also, like I said, doing it up in size. But if that happens, if COVID's still a thing and we have to social distance, then now we have another space that we can invite the rest of our girls to go to and have classes. And yeah, that's it.
yeah, I feel like so much of it goes back to that question of what do you need addressed to families, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, virtual classes, because of all the challenges that they face right now with COVID and internet access, and that's such an interesting and sad point. I think a lot of people now are recognizing just the privilege of technology, like devices and internet access.
Mm-hmm.
But okay, so that's not, you know, they're just thinking of, I need medicine for my child. I need, you know, that's not at the food bank. And so that's what you're stepping up to provide, I think, is a really wonderful focus, and way you've adapted. Yeah, and going forward, that sounds like such a wise plan of, you know, we're gonna do what we do until we can't, I think you said.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get kids in the studio being as safe as possible, and if we shut back down, we shut back down. But, you know, maybe we had 2 months where girls could come and be together and dance.
Yeah. And
Each day at a time, we gotta take it.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And it builds stronger rapport. It builds a stronger relationship with our community. And if they're happy at one organization, then it trickles down to everything else. So if they're consistent with one space, the likelihood of them being consistent with another space is high. And that kind of leads us to education. If they're consistent with coming to Groove with me, then they at least have a space that's going to remind them of where they potentially go and potentially be. And so we really ensure that girls really finish school and that they do apply to college and they continue that. But yeah, you're right. We're going to do as much as we can until we can't.
Yeah, you just said something so interesting. I was just thinking about getting that message from school that, over and over, like, you can't do this, you're not worth it, you're not smart. And then they have Groove with me that shows them I can do something, I can be self-confident, I can have things I can be proud of. Okay, maybe I can do that in school too, and that can just shift the whole universe of how they see their world. I think it's extremely powerful.
It is. It really is. And I've seen girls like come in, especially, our preteens to teenage years, they're more self-conscious. They're more aware of where they are in the world and what their role is and how it's such an awkward age. So I think they're more aware of their awkwardness. And so I can see them come in the Groove with me and being these like weird little girls and super shy, and then all of a sudden I see them in a dance studio and they're killing it and they're like the center of attention. I'm like, who is this child? And that really has a lot to do with how we format our classes. And we always have a 15-minute like circle time, and they check in and they're able to talk about what their day was like, and then they can dance, and it's a completely different child. It's like I've had children come in and I'm like, you were in a nasty mood when,
there you are.
Oh,
there you
no,
are.
I'm sorry. And I'm like, well, you were in a nasty mood when you came in, and look at you, you're thriving. Like, look at, like, it's great. Like, yeah, I just really needed to dance today. And that's them. So yeah, we are very, very much so a model that can, and it's not competitive. It's not a competitive place. We are not your traditional dance school. We accept different dance styles, body types, hair types, skin colors, and we are able to offer that much and more because we're so accepting. And there is no sort of competition from one girl to the other, because that often sets us back. If they have a woman at Groove with me that they can look up to and they don't feel like they have to compete against, that's growth. Like that's amazing. Like it's 10 times more effective. So yeah, I can keep going on and on about it.
Are you still looking for new teachers, for anyone who's listening who may be interested in getting involved?
Yes. We are constantly looking for new teachers. Even when we start the school year, I never cut that off, because we can always use volunteer teachers in any type of fashion. So whether or not they can offer up 2 hours a week and be consistent teachers, or if there can be a sub teacher, or if they're willing to do a workshop, we're always open and willing for that. Giving the gift of dance is impeccable. It shows that you're giving your time, and that you're giving them a trade that they can eventually, or a different dance style that they can eventually use. Like you said, like even if you don't dance professionally, you will always remember someone who's made an impact in your life, and whether that's through dance or just through any sort of mentorship. But in addition to that, we're always looking for volunteers for our recital, any events as chaperones, for our fundraisers, and mentorship programs. So our team leaders it's mandatory that they find a mentor that works, has either danced before or is in dance, and what they're doing with their lives right now, and someone they can check in with and have some sort of personal and professional development. And it's so important to have women in power come back, or women in authoritative positions come and guide those girls. So anyway, so all of those ways, it's ways that you can give back to Groove Me to get connected. And we're open to all of that. And anyone who is interested in anything that I've mentioned, or if they have any new ideas anyway, like we're always open to all of that. And they can always email me at Angie@groovewithme.org with their resume and any points of interest that they may have. It's a very fulfilling organization. No one regrets coming through and is like, I hate it here. Everyone has a great time there, which should explain. I have the hardest time just blabbling like about things that I'm not really interested in. Some people have a gift to do that and I cannot, and it's really important because it's very authentic and genuine. If I have the passion for it, and I've been there for a couple of years now, and I'm very fulfilled, then I think that someone who comes in as a volunteer will be extremely fulfilled, and will have a great time there as well. So, email me.
We will put that, we'll get that down for people so they'll know how to contact you. Yeah, I think we covered so much, but that feels like a sort of a good place to end. Is there anything else that we didn't hit on? Anything else you want to share with our audience?
I can't think of anything, but I want to say thank you for inviting Groovy Meat onto this segment. I think it's important for us to get out there and to talk about these issues, to really start conversation on different forms of dance, on how dance impacts anyone's life, and social justice issues. Whenever I interview anyone for Groove With Me, we often talk about cultural competency and cultural fluency, but most importantly, cultural acceptance. And the only way that really creates change is through conversation and through inviting others to be part of that conversation. Like I said, we're in a space that constantly, or in a country that's really trying to divide us all and separate us as much. And so dance is a really big way to bring people together. And I really appreciate this, like being part of this is amazing, and to start this conversation. And if anyone can continue the conversation, I'm always willing and available. So yeah, again, thank you. Groove With Me is very appreciative. We invite anyone to come in and see the space. It's a beautiful space for our families, and I think everyone would find fit there too.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You too, Catherine.
Thanks so much. I'm gonna close out the recording.